were doing they were praying me in, Renee said, Mary brings sunshine, and my nickname that I've had since I'm a little girl is Mary Sunshine, that my father gave me. He even sang a song to me. So there are no coincidences, and the sun started to appear, so I'm grateful that if I had any part of that. A year ago, I was here speaking on the same subject, and 3 months prior to that, my mother had transitioned back to spirit. I was on the verge of having a nervous breakdown. Today, I consider it a breakthrough. And I came up here and spoke because part of my commitment to my spiritual practice is to show up. And this community, I know, welcomes me and my authenticity, and that's part of the teaching. And it was a really challenging talk to give on gratitude when my feelings of gratitude were minuscule. And I spoke from that place of what is it like to speak about a subject when it's really challenging to practice. And I have now revolved a year around that experience of loss around my mother, and I'm in a different place today. A couple of months ago, I was speaking at a retreat that I did. I was asked to speak at a retreat, and a year ago when I was doing it, I was also in the midst of having a nervous breakdown. And I walked around the ground, 25 acres of beautiful apple orchards in New Jersey. And most of the time I was weeping and yelling at God to help me. It was it was a time of they talk about the dark soul when we go through that experience. And they asked me to come back this year, which I'm completely shocked that they did, because I felt like I didn't do my best, but again, I was authentic, and I have I have an investment that I tap into because I do a lot of work on myself that I call my medicine bundle, that personal worthy investment. And I believe that that's what I was tapping into last year. So this year I go and feel completely different. So those of you that are in trauma or pain, it does change. And as I was walking around the property this year, I went in before the statue of Blessed Mother, and I don't have an affinity to Blessed Mother except we have the same name. And to me, she is the goddess energy. And I sat in front of it and meditated, which I couldn't do a year ago. I was like on static, and I sat grateful that I could meditate, and I was just sitting there in my sacred space. I felt 2 hands on my shoulders, and I heard in my mother's voice, "Stop looking for me amongst the dead, I am amongst the living." I felt a crackle and a crack, and I felt like I emerged from my mourning. Not that I'm still not mourning, but I felt different, and I felt lighter. And I felt like that I received different eyes that I see the world. My topic for this conversation about gratitude is living in radical amazement. So it's quite different than what I experienced a year ago. I'd like to read what I found a couple of weeks ago as the definition. Our goal should be to live in life in radical amazement. Get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is a phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed. Last week, I was picking up my son at his play date at one of his friends, and his friend does not live in one of the mansions on the ocean, but lives in a very modest community. And when I drove up, I parked my car, and I got out of the car, and in front of me was the most beautiful tree that I've ever seen. It was in full foliage. The colors, made me in wonder and awe. I have this belief that my mother communicates with me by leaving me dimes. And as I stood and took the time to bask in the tree, something I couldn't do a year ago, I looked down and there was a dime. Coincidence? God incidence? Right? I went to see the movie Wonder last night. Recommended all of you go see it. There were certain lessons in this movie that allowed me to reflect on an experience in my life that I will share in a few minutes. But 4 concepts that I took for it, there are many, but particularly 4 that really resonated with me that I hope can be helpful to all of you around living in radical amazement. The first one is, I think there should be a rule that everyone should get a standing ovation once in their lifetime. When given the choice between being right and being kind, always choose kindness. We carry in our hearts who we are, but we carry on our faces where we've been. He who has the greatest strength is the one that elevates others to their strengths. 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, my sister and my brother-in-law had a baby. Her name is Mia Bella, and she was born to our surprise, like the child in the movie. So it's not a made-up story. There are children out there, men and women of all races, that are born with special challenges, and I think special gifts. In fact, I believe they come in here surrounded by angels, and they teach us to see through the eyes of that angelic love. When my niece was born, I saw my brother-in-law, who's here today, who doesn't know I'm talking about this. I saw my sister and my brother-in-law rise to a strength that most of us never get the opportunity to rise to. They held my niece in a way that they didn't see her as imperfect, but as perfectly authentic. I've never saw, for the 7 years my niece was alive, my sister ever judge her or my brother-in-law. They saw her as beautiful, and anyone that was in my niece's presence was transformed. Because when a heart is held, when a mind is held with gratitude and acceptance, the heart becomes a magnet for miracles. There was one experience particularly. My sister was still in the hospital. She had complications after the birth. My niece was in the NIC unit, which is a really powerful place. You want some gratitude and humility? Go sit in a NIC unit, okay? And we were in the room with my sister. It was my sister who gave birth, my other sister, my mother, Noah, and myself. And Noah's friends walked in the room, and it was very awkward. They didn't know what to say. What do you say, right, to someone whose baby's in the NIC unit, told that possibly would not live through the day? And Noah says, why don't you guys come down and meet Mia? And they leave, and they're gone for about an hour, maybe a little longer. And when they walked into that hospital room, they were transformed. Now I know, because I was in that room when they first arrived and when they left. They had been in the energy of my niece, who is an angel. She was born an angel. She continues to be an angel. And they came back and were able to hold and love my sister in a way that they couldn't prior to that. There was this awkwardness. There is a village in Africa. When someone in the village does something against their village laws, the community creates a circle around the person, and they tell that person how good they are, the qualities they have, until the person feels it. That's how they punish someone when they've broken a law, okay? What they have found is most of the villagers that break that law never break that law again. So there is something to be said about holding love and community. And I loved what Renee said. You know, she looked at you all and she's like, there's nothing like being with a community of love and light that resonates and resurrects from us the greatest sense of self. My niece still does that. My sister would walk, I remember visiting them. She was transported to Boston Children's Hospital because they had a mitochondria doctor who could take care of my niece. My niece was a miracle. They said she'd live a day. She lived 7 years. She was a definite miracle. And my sister would walk around the floor that she was on and knew everyone there, had a smile for everyone, and resonated light. She was a bright light in a place that could be very depressing and sad. Wonder and awe. Right? What events in your life have shifted you from seeing through the eyes of disappointment, despair, self-doubt, to one of awe, wonder, so that you can live in radical amazement? Because we were born to be radically amazed. The other experience in my life that changed my life is the one I experienced with my mother. When my mother was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, I went right into caregiving. And I spent many days in treatment rooms where people are getting chemo and people are getting all kinds of treatments, and many days in hospitals. And the thing that I experienced was when I sat and looked around with my eyes opened, I saw the beauty, not the despair. I saw the beauty. I saw the people that were in service. I love the quote by Mr. Rogers. He says, when there's despair and devastation, look at the workers, for they're in service of hope. I felt honored to be in those rooms, to sit with my mother, to hold her hand, and be with people that to me are courageous. You know, courageous beyond a wildest dream. And that's another place, if you're feeling like you want a boost of humility and gratitude, go sit in an oncology ward and you will be, you know, resurrected back to the appreciation that you have at the wonder. You know, a day doesn't go by now since I had that crackling experience where I heard and felt my mother, and she said, look for me amongst the living, that I feel like my vision has become so different, that I notice things that I might not have noticed before. And for me, particularly in nature. My son said to me the other day, Mommy, do you notice every single animal and bird? And I said, probably not. But the ones that I do, I'm in deep appreciation for. The other day I was driving to work and 2 loons flew over Montauk Highway. Like, where do you live where you see loons, right? 2 beautiful loons. They're one of my favorite, one of my favorite birds. They bring me back to the movie on Golden Pond, which is another beautiful story about transformation and light, right? We never know what's going to move us into radical amazement. By stimulating and circulating the energy of awe and wonder. I'd like to read a reading that I found. It's called The Rhythm of Wonder. When the mountains sing, when the seas dance, when a crescent moon glides the heavens and the sun lifts day from night, when the rivers waltz to hymns of rain and the oceans drum on cliffs of stone, when the caper bush wakes and the wild iris blooms, remember this. It's not the wind that lifts the eagle lifts the wind. You are the love that frees the baritone hills and the pirouette skies. A shaft of light to loose the crescendos of glory and the color of awe, a heartbeat summoning the rhythm of wonder, a yearning to hear the pulse of God. When silence resounds with music, when darkness radiates light, when creation reaches up from the core of the earth and eternity is a breeze from the edge of the universe, when the call to holiness shines brilliant to the breathless dawn, remember this, it's not the prayer that lifts the blessing. How can you practice those 4 gifts from wonder? I think there should be a rule that everyone should have a standing ovation. When given the choice between being right or being kind, always choose kindness. We carry our hearts who we are. We carry our faces where we have been. Our memories are our holy memoirs. So the next time you look in the mirror at the wrinkle here and the wrinkle there, in the movie Wonder, the son's, I think most of you know the story, based on an actual disease. The mother says, he hides his face a lot in an astronaut's helmet, thank you. And his mother says, I have my own scars. I got this one when you were having your second surgery. I have this one. It's, that all on our face are the stories of our lives that we earned that are holy. And remember, it's the one with the greatest strengths and challenges that helps elevate us to our greatest strength and challenges. I wish you all a happy everything, always. Namaste.